Hello, everyone. I'm Kwamia Ross, and today I have a great message called Captives of the Terrible. Now, a lot of you already know that I've been going back and forth and I've been advocating on behalf of children who are in foster care because my children were taken nearly 18 months ago and placed into foster care. And it's been exposed to me a lot of things. God has been opening my eyes to all the evil and wickedness that's been done. And today I just want to talk about this entire plot of the government and what they want to do to our children, what their intentions are, because they feel they own our children. They feel they have rights to our children. And as my kids were in foster care, they came out, and whoever knows the story, briefly, I'll just, paraphrase what happened. It was like a synopsis of what happened. My children were taken out of the home. Pretty much it started off as some type of educational neglect complaint, and it escalated to other things. The caseworker kind of embellished a lot of things, fabricated lies inside court, said I had a mental illness and all these things without a proper evaluation. And this magistrate for the Cuyahoga Common Pleas Courts went ahead and honored an order for emergency custody, which turned into temporary custody without any type of evaluation or proof of all the allegations, these false allegations that my caseworker put against me. Now, since my kids were placed into foster care, lots of incidents have happened. And one of them was just revealed to me that my son was actually shot. He showed me the bullet where he was grazed. He was at a foster care home, went outside with his foster care brother at night, and I guess they weren't supervised. And, he said someone was shooting at the foster brother, and he ended up getting grazed with a bullet. Not only that, I was recently contacted by my caseworker letting me know that my daughter, who's actually disabled, special needs, knows nothing about sex at all. She has a childlike mind. She has a mind of someone who's probably 12 years old, even though she's 17. She has cognitive delays. And my daughter's never had sex or anything like that, but she was apparently with the foster mother. And they were at, I guess, one of her relatives' homes. She was in the basement. Said a boy came down there and had his genitals exposed, a nephew or something of the foster mother, and asked her to have sex and perform, fellatio oral sex on her. And she went ahead and did it. I get a call that she had sex. So my daughter was exposed to all of this. Not only that, my son was stabbed in his neck while in a group home, and he's still there. So the reason why I'm saying this is because they take your kids out of the home, say you're neglecting your children, but then they take them and they keep them, and they don't look after them any better. They put them in a situation where the kids are exposed to violence, they're exposed to abuse and everything else. And this goes on because they really don't care about the children. This is all what they call themselves. It's something to keep them with a job and to keep income coming into them. If you understand, Children's Services makes a lot of money. They say they don't make much, but they do have government grants. And government grants, I've studied all these government grants that they get, and they get more money when the children are taken out of the home. Not only that, there are a lot of organizations like group homes. They get donations. They have sponsors, big, large corporations and companies who keep donating money to them that's supposedly for the children. But, we don't ever actually see the children get anything. I've had, I buy my kids clothes. I bring things to them and stuff, but half the time they're getting hand-me-down things. They're not getting taken care of properly because this money is meant to fund the pockets and salaries of, the board and the executives and everything else. Again, this is something a big business. Just like a church, just like you have churches making money. I mean, everyone has turned things into a business, and they're making this agenda, and they've enslaved these children. And I'm speaking out about it now because I recently had a visit. After all this time, I was allowed to have unsupervised visits with my son. And the Lord was showing me, because as I took him out, they said it was unsupervised visits. Now, as I took him out, I had to bring him back by a certain time, and I understand that. But the thing is, I kept feeling in my spirit, it's like what they want for these kids, once they have them, it's like they feel they belong to them. The government feels they own our children. And they, not only that, a lot of things they're doing in the spiritual realm. They're doing it in the spiritual realm where once they have hold of your children, they don't really want to release them to you. That's why it's such a battle to get the kids home. Most of these kids end up, a lot of them don't return. And if they do, a lot of foster kids end up going into prison because the government, once they feel they own rights to this child, they don't want to let it go. And that's why you see a lot of foster care children who were, grew up in a foster care home. A lot of them sometimes end up in jail, or they end up in, juvenile detention center, because this is a way that they're now labeled as the government's property. And the Lord showed me this. He revealed this to me, that they're looking at them as their property. My son, they want to label him. This has started in school. This has started when he was in school. They attacked the children's brains. And this is why I said a lot of people have to open their eyes and be aware. These things are happening in the spiritual realm. They're allowed to do sorcery against our children's minds and brains. My child was an intelligent kid. I talk about this all the time. He was very smart. He was putting on his clothes before he was 12 months old, getting himself dressed. He was walking by the time he was 12 months. He was always, he liked to, I thought he would be like an engineer or something. I said he was my little engineer because he was like trying to work on the radio. He was trying to take it apart. He would like to take things apart and see what was inside and see how they function and work. He was working on computers. It's like he was so smart. By the time he was 2 or 3 years old, he could just turn on a computer and play on it, and he was able to do things. He had a great mind. But as soon as I put him in school, his dad put him into this public school, and this is happening all over this country. They attack certain children and label them certain ways, especially they prey and target out their children from, a certain demographic, whether they're minority, they have parents who probably do not have much money, low-income parents, or parents who came from, children who come from parents who might have had, certain problems in their family, and they deem them worthless, basically. No one's worthless. God has created everyone with a purpose, and who are you to deem anyone as worthless and invaluable? They only want their own to thrive and succeed, and they're taking these kids out of the home, and they're attacking them in the schools. A lot of children, and it's done in the hospitals as well. A lot of children are born here, healthy children, and they vaccinate you and do things to you in the hospitals, and the children come out with disabilities. And once they get a disability, guess what? They have services for them. I talk about this all the time. I've written many books, and people need to start picking them up because there's a lot of information. My eyes have been open to all of this, and if this is done in the spiritual world, like I said, a lot of times we can't do anything physically. You have to fight spiritually because these are strongholds and principalities that's been over this entire country for centuries. Over this entire country. And the same thing they did with the Indian children, they're now doing it to the black children. They're taking them out of the homes, and they're taking things out of them, taking their gifts. I prayed for my son because I could tell when they were starting to attack him. I didn't know what was going on. He would tell me all the time he had headaches in school. He would come home and say he had headaches. He always have a headache. And I started looking at the pattern. And when he was in school, there's this woman who used to mistreat him. It was a teacher. He was in kindergarten. And she told him one time, oh, you can't cough in school. You're supposed to cough at home. My son was only like 5 years old. He would never make anything like this up. He came home and told me his teacher said he's not supposed to cough in school. Now, this is a Caucasian teacher, and there's a lot of things, a lot of these Caucasian teachers in the schools, and they're belittling children of color. And she had it out for my son. A lot of times my son was told he can't run around and play, but I freely see, the little Caucasian boys running and playing and enjoying life. They want to look at them and make them seem as slaves. They want to enslave them. And this is the problem with America. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not racist, this and that. But there's strongholds over this entire country, especially over the Caucasian race, because ever since slavery, even though the blacks were freed from slavery, they still look in their eyes as we're slaves, that we're supposed to be beneath them, we're supposed to be inferior, that we're not supposed to have rights. They look at us, and that's why you see now today a lot of Caucasian people want to tell somebody what to do or put a black person in their place. We see this a lot all the time. And these are people who have racism in their generation. And there are strongholds over their minds where they still think in their heads that blacks are slaves, or they don't want to know, they don't want to acknowledge the fact that we're human beings and we're created as equal to them. We're created equal. We can have a brain and we can do just as much as you can do. And a lot of them don't like that. And not only that, they want to take the gifts and talents that God put inside certain people. God put inside, a lot of gifts and talents in certain groups and cultures of people. And they want to pray after that as well. So as my son has been in school, he was getting attacked. And he was having these headaches. He would come home. Sometimes he would come home with headaches so excruciating and unbearable that he would just vomit. And so I didn't know what was going on. I was praying and praying, and finally God revealed it to me that they were attacking his frontal lobe, that they were destroying his brain. And I noticed that my son started developing, it was like kind of an erratic behavior. Then they diagnosed him with ADHD. He didn't have ADHD before, but I noticed that his distraction focus had diminished. He couldn't focus. Whenever we were trying to read to him, he would love to read, and so I would read to him and he would read with me. He wasn't focused anymore. And they destroyed that part of his brain. They destroyed it and wanted to label him as a certain thing because they want him to basically put him in a category, because this is what they've been doing to a lot of children, especially black children. I mean, there's other children who they target. Black children and God's children is who they're targeting. And so what they have done, they destroyed his brain. So God was showing me to pray. I took him out of school for a while because I didn't really want him there, but my son is so social. He wanted to go back to school. So I took my kids back in school, and they continued to keep attacking my children. And so this is what they do. They'll destroy their brain and say, oh, this person has these problems. This person has these disorders, or they'll label them as, someone who is a troublemaker. Because now my son, they'll say, and he's impulsive, or he's erratic. He has erratic behavior. And this is what I'm saying. They have a pipeline from foster care to prison, or from school to prison. And that's because they decide already who they want to succeed. Now, I talked with another person who's educated, and he has experience with all this kind of stuff. He told me that, certain children, if they're born from a certain group and their IQ level, a certain, it's not as high as it's supposed to be, they're already going to prepare a jail cell for them. Now, like I said, my son was very smart. He didn't have any type of problems, but they did something to his mind, and all of a sudden he became labeled as someone with ADHD and cognitive delays and all these other things. Now we go from cognitive delays to erratic behavior, and then they put him in foster care and say, "Oh, he's violent now. He's infatuated with gangs." And so they're preparing something. They're preparing. And God already showed me they're just trying to prepare and pave the way. And this is what they've done to many black men who are now locked up in prison, and it's not even of their own. Now my son, I've been praying for his brain, but since he's been taken out of my custody and put into this group home, his brain has been deteriorating. I notice it's like he can't even keep a thought in his head. He's confused. He walks about like he doesn't know what's going on. It's like they're controlling these children. They're controlling their brains. They're taking everything out of them. It's like they're robots. So they can pretty much control them. And so this is what they're doing. They label claim on him. And because the government, this is how they do it. They get their free labor. As you know, a lot of things in America has been built up off of free labor from slaves, from jail inmates, and this is how they get their wealth. And so once they grab a hold of you, they don't want to let you go because the government feels that you're their property. Now, this is what they also do. They'll turn the children away from their parents and try to break and destroy the bond. Like they said, for the longest of time, they kept lying and said my daughter didn't want to be bothered with me. She didn't want to come home. They would make up all these lies. And every time my daughter was with me and with her family, she wanted to be with us. And she would be sad. She would text me messages. And the caseworker would say, oh, no, she doesn't want to be home with you. They were putting things in her head, and they were manipulating her with sorcery and witchcraft. When my daughter was out in public with me, we would take visits, and she would have a headache. Every time she said she wanted to go home, she would literally have a headache, and it would look as if she was drugged. The caseworker was right there. And she said, oh, I'm not doing anything. I confront her about it. I'm not doing sorcery or anything. And they'll lie and say all these things and try to say I'm crazy, even though I already know the Holy Spirit's not going to lie. I told them before that you might think you can get away with doing things that a lot of people don't know, but you're going to be exposed because God, who has created the eye, he sees everything. He's created the ear. He hears everything. He knows everything you conspire even before you conspire it. And that's how he reveals it to his people. Those who are walking with his Holy Spirit are being revealed. This information is being divulged to us. Now, let me tell you, when I went, we just had a visit it was on Tuesday. We had our visit. We have our weekly visits now on Tuesday. It took a while to have regular, consistent weekly visits, but we have weekly visits. So we had a visit on Tuesday, and me and my daughter wanted a bonding moment. She has, creates videos now. She wants to do like a little YouTube page. So she has a YouTube channel where she does innocent things on YouTube. So she wanted to do a video with me and her mother, and we have a supervised visit where the caseworker is sitting right there listening and watching everything. And so I wanted to come up with a video we can make. We were thinking of a challenge video, and I said, you know what? How about we do a makeup challenge where you can put on my makeup for the first time? It was something cute and adorable. She was bonding with me for the first time. No matter how it looked, she was going to put on my makeup. So we sat right there and made this video. My daughter, she put on my eyeshadow, she put on my mascara, she put on my lipstick, and she did a really great job, even though it was the first time we were laughing and bonding, and it was a great thing. So we get ready to post the video, all of a sudden it wouldn't save and it wouldn't work. She just posted from this certain app, and see, this is what they're doing. This wicked woman sat here and wanted to ruin a moment between me and my daughter because they really don't want to give her up. They feel they lay claims to her. The foster mother doesn't want to give her away. These are not your children. And so this is what they're doing. They're taking children out of the home and they're holding on to them like they're theirs. They look at them as property, like they're collateral. And that's what they are pretty much them, because they're just some money for them. And the government marks these children, these foster kids, as collateral. And a lot of them then, especially the boys, the males, they'll put them into a prison after this. They'll cause them to have problems and criminal problems and behavioral problems. Instead of getting them help, they'll have them pave the way so they can be in prison. It's an intentional thing. Because, the prison system is a big money-making thing. They make money off of commissary. They having you buying stuff in the prisons that you need. You have to pay for all that stuff. They have you, like I said, they get free labor. So they're making money. They're making money, yet it might not seem like they're making money, especially these private prisons, these private organizations. And so God was showing me all of this, that he says, they're going to try and plot to put your son in prison. And so now I'm dealing with this battle, and I'm speaking out by myself because it's like, I don't have very much influence. So I'm asking those who do have influence, because this is not just for me. I'm going to pray, God, let my kids be here just so that I could be an advocate, because he sent people up in there as employees in these places, and they didn't do anything. They didn't do what they're supposed to. There might have been a couple who were fighting, but they overpowered them. But the rest of them who were put in there in these positions, they just got their money and they kept their little job and they keep their mouths closed and they watch all this suffering that's going on to these children, and they go along with it just so they can have a paycheck, because their minds, they have selfish motives. As long as their children aren't suffering, as long as it's not their family who's being destroyed, they don't care. But God sent them up in there for a reason, and they failed to help others. And he's going to deal with you. Believe me, he's going to hold you accountable, because people like me, my children had to actually be put in this situation and suffer, because he had you sitting up in there working in that position for a reason. God did not give you that position just to sit there on your behind and collect a paycheck. He puts you in that position so you can pray down the strongholds and start fighting and advocating for children who are suffering and don't have a voice to fight for themselves. And this is why I get tired of it, because it's like, I have to do this. I have to fight by myself, literally. And yes, I deal with a lot of suffering, a lot of backlash. And every time I speak up for my kids, they get mad and try to turn my kids against me. Just like just not long ago, I got a text message from the caseworker asking me, can my daughter go to Detroit with the foster parent? I said no. You think I'm going to let my daughter go to Detroit with you, to your family's house, after you just let my daughter have sex with someone who wasn't supervising her? My daughter just has sex, and they had to take tests and see if she was pregnant, if she had any disease or anything else, because she was not watching her. But if you have a biological parent do this, they'll be ready to snatch out the home quickly. But they let these foster parents, and they're all in together. These foster parents in group homes can haphazardly take care of our children any kind of way and expose them to all types of things, and it's okay. You don't see anyone intervening or doing anything, because they're not really caring about the benefit and safety of our children. If they did, this system would not be this way. All they want, like I said, this is just an agenda to destroy our race, to destroy our children, because it's satanic, it's demonic, and to use them as collateral and property. Like I said, she ruined the moment, because she does not want us to bond. She wants to make it seem like my daughter doesn't want to be bothered with me, and my daughter does. I told my daughter, and this is how the woman sits in the background manipulating her. I told her, you're not going to go, because she called me up and says, why'd you tell my caseworker I can't go to Detroit? And I explained to her. I says, you weren't watched and supervised last time. I'm trying to protect you. I don't want you going. And she says she hates me. My daughter doesn't do that. Only when they're manipulating her. They're doing sorcery on these kids, trying to destroy the bond. And I'm telling you, it's all Jezebel spirits too. Jezebel's not going to control anything here. Jezebel's not going to control, because you know what? Who has the final say so? They may have authority and power because, the judges who are on it also, who are crooked and wicked. They're corrupt. They give these orders to take children out of the homes, knowing that the children could be put in situations where it's abusive, knowing that the children will be better off with their families, or they're not even trying to make sure the children are taken care of while they're placed into the custody of Children and Family Services. Even though they get motions telling them about this, they keep the kids there. I went through all of that. But guess what? God's going to deal with all of them. And I have a scripture that talks about the captives of the terrible. And it says, I'm reading from Isaiah 49. Chapter 49, verses 24 to 26. This is the King James Version. And it says, shall the prey be taken from the mighty, or the lawful captive delivered? But thus saith the Lord, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. For I will contend with him that contended with thee, and I will save thy children, and I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken with their own blood as with sweet wine, and all flesh shall know that I, the Lord, am thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. And that's Isaiah 49, 24 to 26. And he says, the terrible, the captives of the terrible and the mighty shall be taken away. They might be powerful. The government might be powerful, but God is going to bring the entire infrastructure down, because all they're doing is taking our children, taking the men, taking our people and enslaving them. They're supposed to serve and protect, but they don't serve and protect. They don't even come to stop a crime from happening. They wait till it's happened so they can lock someone up. I've witnessed this my own self. They act like they can't do it. This is all demonic. I've even filed police reports. You think they care? When I file police reports for investigations of a pedophile, you think they care? They get mad at you when you call them about the investigation, see what's the progress of the investigation. They don't care. They're not serving and protecting us. They're treating us as slaves. They're treating us as collateral that they can just control and destroy at any point. And guess what? God's going to tear it all down because he's not going to allow this to keep happening. They're doing it to our children, they're doing it to our men and our women. And it's all over this wicked, disgusting country. And it starts, it's derived from racism. It's derived from evil, wicked people who want to control and be in a power and position of authority and control all the resources and to keep others in bondage. Children and Family Services is an entity of the government, is a government entity. And they're all controlled. This is all trickling down from the Illuminati. I talk about this all the time. And what Christians need to start doing is open their eyes and fighting back and praying. I can't do it by myself. I say it all the time. I am here as just a vessel to bring awareness and to advocate in the best way I can. I do what I can, but others need to start standing up, especially those with more influence, more authority, and more power who have a voice that can make these situations known about how our children are really suffering. They're taking kids out of the homes, exposing them to all kinds of things and not letting them go. They want to keep them and hold them. And once they bring them home, they want to make another reason and bring them back out the house. It's like once they're your property, it's like just like when you go to jail. Somehow they end up getting back in trouble and going back. These people are not doing this on their own. I'm letting you know there are spiritual forces that are intervening and controlling them where they go back to prison. Once you deal with foster care, it's hard to break loose from them because these forces feel that they own you. They said, this is my collateral. It's like they keep coming back like they're mine. They come back. It's like a man who's been with a woman and he keeps coming back following her, said that's his woman, he's not going to let her go, he's stalking this woman, he won't let her go. And these are demonic forces that are hindering our people. Once the children are in foster care, they can't completely be breaking free unless you break those strongholds off of them. And it takes some strong spiritual warfare and some strong prayer, because this is what they're doing. This is what the government is doing. It's wicked and evil, and I'm exposing it now. And I want others, I'm asking you to please start praying. You can't be afraid. He says, if he's for us, who could be against us? God put me in this situation. He didn't put me in this situation because, I did something wrong. He put me in this situation because he needed a voice and a vessel to advocate for his people. He needed someone to open their eyes and see what was going on the inside. Because those who he put in these positions and trust this position to before I came along, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They might have tried, but they I don't know. They ended up giving in. So this is what I'm saying. My children in this situation now, this is something that's wicked. And when I took my kid out, when I said we had our visit, I felt the forces. It was so evil. It's like they kept trying to fight against us. I almost lost my phone twice because they were fighting against me. I had to bring them back at a certain time. And they really wanted, what they wanted to do was for me not to bring him back on time so they can say, so either send the police out and get us or say, you know what, you can't have these community visits anymore because you didn't bring them back. Because they really don't want us to have community visits. They really don't want you to. I had to fight for all this stuff, and it took so long. God opened that door for me. They want to keep our children in a bondage and keep them from bonding with their parents and keep them away because they look at them as their property. They're not their property. These are human beings. These are God's children. They don't belong to Satan. They don't belong to the government or the Illuminati. And it's time we need to fight. I am bringing forth awareness because this is something that needs to be known. Thank you.